Chicago Faculty for Justice in Palestine, a collective of over 120 faculty and staff to urge administrators to resume negotiations in good faith and to continue to respect freedom of expression on campus. The university must not employ police force to put an end to student protests. To do so would violate the university's duty to protect its students, as well as their right to free expression. The use of police force on university campuses across America is a dangerous precedent to set for the future of our country. The use of police force in these circumstances does not serve to protect, but rather to intimidate and silence. The students' peaceful methods, sitting, chanting, singing, and speaking out, violence and their dedication to a just cause. A. Field, F-I-E-L-D, Allison Madia, A-L-L-Y-S-O-N, N-A-D-I-A, F-I-E-L-D. You, Allie. Good morning. My name is Jessica Darrell, and I'm an assistant instructional professor at the Town Family School of Social Work, Policy, and Practice, and a three-time alum of the university. Irrespective of one's view of the bloodshed taking place in Gaza, our university campuses are the last place at which peacefully assembled students should be arrested. Students have always been a national project, and brave student protesters on college campuses have historically propelled social change to strengthen our democracy, expand individual rights, and state programs of violence and prejudice. As educators, it's our responsibility to nurture not only the intellectual but also the moral development of our students. When they choose to stand up for what they believe in, they're applying the lessons of history, ethics, governance, and social justice that they have learned in our classrooms and from our texts. They're not merely learning democracy, they're doing democracy. UChicago's FJP chapter demands that this university and others be held accountable by fully disclosing the full scope of their involvement in the genocide in Gaza, divesting from all forms of related investment, and helping repair the global and local harm that UChicago has caused. The university currently invests in index funds through Vanguard with exposures to weapons manufacturers like Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing, whose weapons are being used by Israel in Gaza right now. According to Amnesty International, the university's investment portfolio scores a 0 in responsible investments. The Students' Popular University for Gaza, which you see behind you, exemplifies the values of inquiry and free expression espoused by the University of Chicago. Our students' demands are reasonable and they are clear. They are applying what they've learned in courses and from each other to create a peaceful, welcoming, and educational space.
Thank you, Jessica. My name is Faith Hillis, spelled Faithhillis. I'm a professor in the history department, and I'm a member of the Greenberg Center for Jewish Studies. I'm here this morning to ask our university to live up to its stated values of free speech and rigorous debate. The University of Chicago Popular University in Gaza is in fact the best embodiment of these values that I've witnessed in my 14 years here as a faculty member. As you know, if you visited the encampment, the Popular University is above all a place of learning. It has its own library, named in honor of the Palestinian poet Rafat al-Arir, who was killed in December. There are multiple teach-ins occurring every day. University community members are going there to learn about the horrifying events unfolding every day in Gaza. And in fact, as a result of this encampment, I've seen more students and faculty conversing in a deep way and working together than I ever have before. Numerous of my faculty colleagues have commented that they feel they are learning more from our students than we can possibly ever teach them. And I think the most important things the students have to say is, although the story of the student encampments has become the nation's leading news story, the students really want us to focus on what's happening in Gaza and the fact that right now, today, it looks like an Israeli ground invasion of Rafah is imminent. And I think that their message needs to be heard. The Free University is also succeeding in reaching out across the broader community. It is drawing neighbors from Hyde Park and across the city who are engaging in conversations about how the destruction in Gaza is related to underinvestment and police violence on the south side of Chicago. Since the first day of the encampment, the university has threatened it with violent dispersal on the charge that it violates university statutes that bar disruptive behavior. But in fact, the genius of this encampment is that it is not truly disruptive to the university's operations in any meaningful way. It is outdoors, it is orderly and peaceful, and as I said, it is an integral part of our learning environment.
Use your outside voice.
Of course, it is true that not everyone likes the message that the students have for us, and not everyone wants to hear it. But discomfort is not the same as disruption, and in fact, the university itself has celebrated discomfort as part of learning and free expression. I've watched with horror over the past few weeks as militarized police and even SWAT teams have dispersed peaceful protests and beaten students and faculty onlookers. One historian colleague at another university is so badly injured from this violence that he now needs surgery. And I'm here today because I'm terrified that something similar may happen here. I implore our president and our university leaders to come back to the bargaining table in good faith and to listen to our smart and courageous students and learn what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hillis. My name is Elham Mereshki, and I'm an assistant instructional professor in the college and the Divinity School. I'm going to echo much of what my colleagues have already said, this time with more of an outside voice, as has been asked of us. This student effort has included a daily schedule of guest lectures, teach-ins, musical performances, beautiful religious ceremonies of multiple faiths, including prayers led by Christians, Jewish, and Muslim community members, and an on-site library. This was and is an educational and political endeavor protected by the First Amendment. It should be especially safeguarded at UChicago, an institution dedicated to the free and open exchange of ideas. In order to honor the university's long-standing commitment to free expression outlined in the Calvin Report, administrators have an obligation to allow for continued peaceful protest. Students have been productively engaging in negotiations with the university over the last week, while the university has continued in bad faith to escalate by repeatedly threatening police action. As faculty members, we will protect the safety of our students if the administration attempts to violently remove them, even if that means arrest and detention. A crackdown against our students at the popular University for Gaza and the right to free expression and protest the ongoing Israeli genocide of Palestinians would be indefensible. We will continue to speak forcefully in their defense and in the defense of the millions in Gaza experiencing mass starvation, dislocation, and death. Thank you. Elham, E-L-H-A, M as in Mary. Mereshki, M as in Mary, I-R-E-S-H-G-H-I. Elham Mereshki.
Hello, my name is Anton Ford. I'm an associate professor in the philosophy department and a member of the University Faculty Council. Faculty for Justice in Palestine is a group of more than 120 faculty at the University of Chicago We are united by our horror at the calamity unfolding in Gaza and by our solidarity with the Palestinian people who for the last 6 months have been mercilessly attacked by the Israeli army. The same solidarity with the people of Gaza unites the peaceful protesters who have camped here on the Quad for the last 7 days. These are nonviolent protesters and they are our students. We call on President Alivisatos to find an alternative to police violence and to continue negotiating. Moreover, importantly, we support the protesters' central demands, that the university divest its endowment and that it suspend its formal cooperation with Israeli institutions. We reject the exceptionalist proposition that the university should maintain institutional neutrality. Even the Calvin Report makes room for exceptional moments when the university's ownership of property, including its financial investments, might have to be reassessed because they are incompatible with, quote, paramount social values. In its well-documented finding, the International Court of Justice has found that it is plausible that Israel is in the middle of committing a genocide of the Palestinian people right now. Genocide is incompatible with paramount social values. We reject as untrue the university's claim that a peaceful encampment of students is an intolerable disruption of campus life. What little disruption there has been is a trivial inconvenience which is insignificant by comparison to the good of permitting our students to peacefully express their sincere political commitments and by comparison to the evil of violent police action. President Alivisatos has boasted that more than 90 other universities across the country have adopted this university's position on freedom of expression. One of the first universities to adopt the so-called Chicago principles was Columbia. The most recent was Emory. At both of those universities, in recent weeks, there's been brutal repression of student and faculty protesters. When all of this is over, the University of Chicago will have to answer for its principles. Is what happened at Columbia and at Emory what the Chicago principles look like in practice? Faculty at this university are worried about how President Alivisatos proposes to answer that question. Our most immediate concern is for the well-being of our students. We don't want them getting beat up just because they're camping on the lawn. Because we expected a raid last night, dozens of us were here. The majority came prepared to be arrested with our students. Faculty for Justice in Palestine will continue to stand with them.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you all for being here. My name is Alireza Dustar. I am Associate Professor of Islamic Studies and the Anthropology of Religion at the Divinity School, and I also direct the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. We stand here today because we find ourselves at a profoundly anti-Palestinian university. I am not speaking about the faculty. All you need to do is look around you at my colleagues here or spend some time speaking to the many other faculty and staff at the university who are speaking up and organizing against the ongoing genocide. Nor am I speaking about the student population. Just look at the Gaza Solidarity Encampment and how it has grown and thrived over the past week. I am speaking about the university's structure of finances and partnerships, as well as its leadership. Our university's partnerships are anti-Palestinian. We engage in research collaborations with Israeli institutions whose products serve the Israeli military-industrial complex. I will give you just one example. We host the Chicago Quantum Exchange, meant to facilitate collaborative research into quantum computing technology with, among others, the Weizmann Institute of Technology and the Technion in Israel. The Chicago Quantum Exchange facilitates the transfer of research to corporate partners like Boeing, whose weaponry is being used on Palestinians today. UChicago has also been invested in funds like Sequoia Capital, the Deerfield Group, and Greenbrier that invest in Aerotech, which makes tactical training simulations and drone batteries currently being used by Israel. They have also been invested in Armis, a company that markets quote-unquote Israeli-made and tested cybersecurity software designed by former members of Israeli Defense Forces Unit 8200, which is engaged in AI-based assassinations of entire Palestinian families. These are just a few of our university's partnerships and investments that sustain the Israeli occupation, apartheid, and genocide against Palestinians. But there is more. UChicago's administrators, and above all, President Paul Alivisatos, have also shown, through both actions and inactions, to be anti-Palestinian. In February, as the International Court of Justice heard South Africa's genocide case against Israel, President Alivisatos welcomed an Israeli consul general to campus and stood for a photo op with him. Despite repeated claims to political neutrality, our president has never, not once, met with a Palestinian delegation. Indeed, our president seems reluctant even to utter the word Palestine. Nor has he been willing to acknowledge that hundreds of his peers, our peers, faculty, students, and administrators have been slaughtered in Gaza since October 7th. President Alivisatos has proven unwilling even to accept, never mind condemning, the indisputable fact that every single Palestinian university in Gaza has been bombed and partially or completely destroyed. So if we are here to support our students' demands for disclosure, divestment, and repair, it is because we faculty believe that our university, our institutional and intellectual home, is complicit in heinous crimes against the Palestinian people. As we stand here, the Israeli military is forcibly displacing Palestinians once again, this time from Rafah. The horrors we have witnessed in the past 6 months may pale in comparison to what is still to come. Our complicity as a university needs to end, and we will do everything in our power to end it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mernoush Sorush. I'm an assistant professor in the Division of Humanities. I'm here as a part of this group for 3 reasons. One is I cannot, as a human, even imagine and sleep thinking about the atrocity that is going on in Gaza. All the children and women, the starvation, the fear, the horror, the bombing. I was raised in Iran when my country was being bombed for 8 years by the weapons that were provided by the West. So, and I had the whole other part of the country that I could safely reside in. So I cannot just imagine the horror of the children that are being grown up in Gaza when they are being relocated from one bomb zone to the other bomb zone. There is no safe place in Gaza. The second reason I'm here is because when you kill children, when you starve them, when you kill their families, you destroy hope. And destruction of hope is something that radicalizes people. So the only reason that my region, my country, and the people I belong to can be in peace is to restore hope, to restore possibilities for education, for career, for movement. You cannot imprison generations of people and starve them and expect that they become peaceful citizens. The third reason I'm here is that 20 years ago, I was a student in Iran and I was fighting for what I thought are the moral stands. And the Islamic government of Iran was cracking down peaceful student protests at the pretext of security. So every single thing that I hear here remind me of the same thing that I heard in Islamic Republic of Iran. So I came here to live in a country where I can not expect the students to be beaten up when they're expressing their ideas peacefully. And look at this encampment. The university is constantly throwing money at causes for engagement with Southside and the neighborhood. The community that these students have built is stronger than anything that university's money have created. I'm here to support the right of these children, the kids, and the kids in Gaza for a peaceful future. Thank you. Mehrnoush. Mehrnoush is my first name, last name Soroush. Soroush.
Do you want me to spell my name too?
Yeah.
Alireza. Last name is Doostar, Doostdar.
We'll now be happy to take questions, and I'll invite my colleagues to join me as well. So.
All right, Allison, Nadia Field and Mr. Doostar, you both made the point about universities being bombed. We've seen a lot of evidence as both Islamic Jihad and Hamas have been using the universities as firing points and for weapons storage. So don't they bear some responsibility in the universities being hit?
I think international law is very clear. Militaries do not attack civilian targets. And universities, international law is very clear. You do not attack military targets. You do not attack civilian targets. Hospitals have been targeted. Universities have been targeted. Schools have been targeted. Refugee camps have been targeted. And the Israeli claims that these are harboring military, that these are harboring tunnels, that they're harboring weapons, have repeatedly proven false. So I think any claim that comes from the Israeli government has to be investigated by neutral international observers and not taken at face value. But all of that being said, civilian targets are off limits, and I think that should not be disputable.
I just wanted to add that to prove Israel's intent in scholasticide, we only have to look at the case of Isra University. Isra University was actually used, after it was evacuated, was used as headquarters for the IDF. It was completely cleared, used as headquarters for the IDF before it was detonated, turned into nothing deliberately by Israel. Just look at that one case to see Israel's intent in scholasticide. It should be crystal clear for everyone what the purpose here is.
And to your question, my point was actually a very simple one, that the university should acknowledge that these colleges and universities existed, and now they don't, and they're unwilling to do that.
We heard multiple speakers say that they were afraid of a police raid last night. They were afraid of students being beaten up. Can you elaborate on why you expect that or fear that? Like, have you been privy to conversations about next steps?
Well, I was in negotiations. I was in the negotiation room yesterday with the administration before they decided to suspend those negotiations. They made it very clear that midnight was the deadline for the removal of the encampment, that they promised not to remove it before midnight. They didn't make clear whether they would do so after. The university has a history of arresting students and faculty. In fact, just in November, a peaceful sit-in in Rosenwald was dispersed by the police, and 2 faculty and 26 students were charged with criminal trespass in the place where they live and where they work and study. And the university refused to drop those charges afterwards, despite enormous pressure from the university community. So it is not out of line with what we've seen the university do over the last few months to expect that they will use violent force against our students.
You said the deadline was midnight, overnight.
Midnight last night was the deadline, correct.
And you're a faculty member who was in the room?
I am a faculty member who's in the room, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Comparative Human Development. My name is Iman Abdelhadi, EMAN. ABDELHADI.
Guys, just a quick follow-up. We're tracking other schools who have canceled commencement ceremonies, and yours is a month out, but it's set to be right here. Are you hearing any conversations about those plans being impacted yet?
We have not heard anything about those plans. I think it's frankly absurd that universities are canceling their commencement addresses in fear of a few students doing innocuous things like saying Free Palestine or holding up a sign or wearing a keffiyeh around their necks. It really speaks to the incredible fragility of this system that is seen as a major threat.
Can I ask, since you were in
Sure.
Since you were inside the negotiation, what's kind of the end goal? The university says they're now suspended. If the university does end up disclosing what they're investing in these Israeli funded companies, what's the end goal? Then what?
Well, I think that this is a step in the idea is to create a step in a long process towards better accountability for not just this university, but other institutions that are complicit in military excursions across overseas. So I think the end goal. I don't think that this negotiation is necessarily the end, but I think that the students were negotiating in good faith, and I think the administration was negotiating and suddenly suspended talks when students felt that we were pretty close to an end, and most of their requests were around accountability measures to ensure that the things that were on offer would actually be followed through and would be open to community oversight.
I guess to follow up on that, I mean, these are major companies that you're talking about that not
Sure.
only are involved in this conflict, but others. Do you see students and faculty being involved in other protests of, like, for other conflicts outside of this one?
Yes, in fact, I think that this divestment campaign is a follow-up on a broader divestment campaign, for example, from fossil fuels. The students have been very clear that they don't want investment in any weapons manufacturers, regardless of where the weapons are being used and on whom they're being used. So I do think this is consistent with a broader set of values and broader activism at the university and other places that hasn't received as much attention from the press or the public, but has been around for decades.
Your presence here and your support for the students, does that mean that they are not being penalized for being here and not being in class? Are they able to remotely learn?
I believe students have been attending classes, and I think that we are very concerned that the university will take punitive measures against our students, as they did after the sit-in at Rosenwald Hall. The university administration itself complained about the students to itself. At Rosenwald, so the university has a disruption policy that is triggered by complaints. The deans on call, a system in the university that is in charge of the well-being of our students, issued the complaint, and then a different part of the administration, beholden to the same people, went through and enacted those disciplinary measures. So we actually have no confidence at all that our students will not face punitive measures for their enactment here. By the way, the university only, that sit-in lasted all day, and there were people coming in and out. The university pulled the records of who would face disciplinary hearings by pulling police records. So by pulling the arrest records and then serving those people with a disciplinary disruption policies. So the university has a history of acting extremely punitively against free speech and protest. We hope that the university does not enact these same punitive measures against our students for their encampment, but we will be placing a lot of pressure to ensure that doesn't happen.
Is that why a lot of the students are covering their faces and they don't want to be seen on camera? They're fearful? Is that?
That's in part the case, but it's also that Palestinian and pro-Palestinian students have been facing intensive doxing and harassment for their participation in activism across not just the last 7 months. This has been a tactic that pro-Israel groups have used, which is to publish students' names, their addresses, their home phone numbers, and to engage in mass online harassment campaigns against them to try to make sure that they're not employable, that they can't ever find an apartment. This is a very well-established tactic. If you have an hour and want to get really angry, look up Canary Mission as an organization that literally spends all of its time doing this. And so students have been masking at protests to protect themselves from this intensive harassment. Yeah.
And I know some of you said you were prepared to get arrested alongside student protests. Are you still intending to do that, and are you afraid of your jobs?
No matter where, if the university brings police against our students, we will be there.
And are you afraid of your jobs, losing your jobs at all?
When a genocide is happening, extreme measures are under. We're no more afraid for our jobs than people in Gaza are afraid to lose their tent that has replaced their home, that replaced their other home. So I think that our fear pales in comparison.
This is an institution that prides itself on free speech and ethical values, and that these students are being punished for exercising those values. And is it because the people they're supporting are Palestinians?
Absolutely. There is an irony here. The university hides behind the idea of political neutrality, but the university was not politically neutral when it came to Ukraine. It was not it very quickly mobilized resources to support, rightly so, to support Ukrainian students, to support Ukrainian scholars. It created all this infrastructure for the people that were affected by the Ukrainian conflict, right? And any pro-Ukrainian sentiment was celebrated and encouraged. That's just one example of instances in which the university has been open to free speech so long as it is not about Palestine. Now, this is a broader issue. This is not just this university. The Palestine exception is a well-documented exception to free speech in American society, which is to say that you can basically speak about anything unless it is Palestine. And so, yes, it is incredibly ironic, especially for this place, to have these draconian measures and to frankly have these racist exceptionalism. As a Palestinian faculty member, I'm the only Palestinian faculty member, in fact, and there was never a check-in on my safety or my well-being or how my family is doing. The university has been very clear that those things don't matter.
Palestinian people have had tremendous support for Hamas, and do you think that support undermines the considerations you're asking for here with respect to the sympathy and empathy that you're seeking for Palestinian people in general?
What? I'm sorry, you didn't introduce yourself. What's your name or where are you from? Oh, okay. This is a press conference. We're gonna reserve.
Do you not like the question?
We weren't listening. We were wondering who you were.
We were just wondering who you were.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Obviously, we saw this weekend that students at the Art Institute were arrested, but otherwise it seems that things are moving fairly smoothly at the Hall. Northwestern has reached an agreement. What do you think it is about U Chicago that has decided to suspend conversations, or what is causing this impasse here, in particular when fellow universities in the area seem to be moving forward and not reaching a deal?
That's a good question. I would actually pose that question to the administration myself. I think that the administration. Yeah, I think what's really appalling is the things that are stopping the negotiation. The students are not being offered a tremendously amazing deal. They're not being offered all of their demands. They are still negotiating in good faith, and I'm going to respect the confidentiality of those by not getting into of those negotiations by not getting into details. But it is a little bit bewildering, frankly. Yeah. I don't know if my colleagues have more to add on that particular point. Yeah.
You have described, a few of you described the disruptions to education as minor. Do the protesters have a right to disrupt anyone's education at all?
Yeah, sorry, I actually didn't get your name or organization
Mike
either.
Tobin, Fox News Channel.
Okay, that makes sense. That checks out. Yeah, I think that protest is disruptive. Every massive protest movement in American history has deployed disruption to great effect. Civil rights protests were disruptive. Protests against South African apartheid were disruptive. I think the students have actually worked very hard to minimize these disruptions, and they are, if you zoom out to the University of Chicago's campus, you will see that this is actually a teeny tiny part of these vast grounds that we have here. But yeah, disruption is a part of protest, and so I think this speaks to the sort of irony we were speaking about earlier, is that you can't say you're pro-protest and pro-free speech and crack down on any disruption, no matter how minor. Because that effectively means that you're anti-free speech and you're anti-protest.
All right, since we're pro-protest and pro-free speech, what is your stance on the
Thank you. We're going to wrap up now.
And those who state that they are ready for a violent encounter and that there are wood planks with nails on them.
Do we have any other?
Thank you very much for everybody for coming today. My number is on the press release. I'm really happy to talk to any of you.
Pro-protest, pro-free speech. Stand for what you say.
Great. And that's all. So thank you very much. And thank you for my colleagues and to the students. Can you give me one? I'll get her out.
Okay, I just want to get correct spellings for anybody. Allison, is that Allison Nadia Field?
Yes.
Okay.